Canada-U.S. relations. The opening for the multi-billion-dollar Gordie Howe International Bridge has been delayed.
The cake was cut, the champagne chilled, and the invitation sent to open a new symbol of Canada-U.S. relations on Friday. But the Gordie Howe Bridge ribbon cutting has been canceled at the last second.
The Gordie Howe International Bridge is finished. 1.5 miles of cable stay engineering stretching across the Detroit River. 6 lanes, 2 customs plazas, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, staffed, trained, and positioned. Canada Border Services, operational since fall 2025. The construction is days from final systems completion, and the bridge is still closed. Not because of structural problem, not because of staffing shortage, not because the tolling systems aren't ready or the lighting isn't working or the highway connections aren't built. The bridge is closed because of negotiation, and that negotiation has nothing to do with the bridge. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what the Gordie Howe Bridge actually is. This is the Windsor-Detroit corridor, the single busiest land border crossing in North America. Approximately $126 billion in annual trade moves through this stretch of river. Auto parts, pharmaceuticals, agricultural goods, manufactured products. The economic backbone of both countries passes through here every single day. For decades, that traffic has had one option: the Ambassador Bridge, a privately owned crossing operated by the Moran family that charges commercial truckers between 20 and 28 per axle. That's 100 to 140 per truck per crossing. The Gordie Howe Bridge was built to break that monopoly. Its commercial toll rate is set at approximately 12 per axle, roughly half the Ambassador's price. A University of Windsor study projected $2.3 billion in savings for truckers over 30 years compared to using the Ambassador Bridge. That savings clock cannot start until the bridge opens. The bridge was originally supposed to open in fall 2025. The Canadian side met every target. The lagging component was the U.S. Customs port of entry in southwest Detroit. Contractors missed 2 deadlines flagged months earlier by SP Global. When those construction delays were eventually resolved, a different kind of delay arrived. In February 2026, Donald Trump posted on social media that the United States would not allow the Gordie Howe Bridge to open until America was, in his words, fully compensated for unfair treatment by Canada. He pointed to Ontario's restrictions on American alcohol sales. He pointed to dairy tariff structures. He pointed to Canada's diplomatic engagement with China. And he claimed the bridge was built entirely with Canadian steel, a claim Prime Minister Carney publicly and directly refuted. The bridge was built with both American and Canadian steel, American workers, and Canadian financing. But the claim that revealed the real demand was this: Trump wants a cut of future toll revenue. He wants to revisit the 2012 agreement that built this bridge. Here's what that agreement actually says. Canada fronted the entire $4.7 billion construction cost. Michigan received 50% ownership of a major international crossing without contributing a single dollar of upfront capital. Canada recoups its construction investment through toll revenue first, a timeline estimated at 30 to 70 years, depending on traffic volumes. Only after that does Michigan begin receiving toll income. Trump's position is that this arrangement is unfair. Canada's position is that both governments signed this contract. It is legally binding, and Michigan already owns half a bridge it didn't pay to build. Here is where the situation becomes structurally clear. The Federal Highway Administration cannot authorize the bridge to open to traffic without White House approval. That requirement means the opening date is not determined by construction timelines, customs readiness, or systems testing. It is determined entirely by whether the president chooses to sign off. DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen told the Senate Appropriations Committee directly, "We have the personnel dedicated, ready to move. We're prepared. We're staffed, ready to go." There's still negotiations between Canada and the United States that's not within DHS that has to be resolved. U.S. Ambassador Pete Ora confirmed the stalemate. No agreement has been reached. The president must personally authorize any opening, and that authorization is currently conditioned on Canada making concessions in trade negotiations that extend far beyond a bridge. Canadian Federal Minister Evan Solomon told CBC that the bridge is one factor in a much larger set of negotiations. CUSMA review, Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum, automotive content rules, dairy market access. The July 1st CUSMA deadline is weeks away. The White House has inserted the bridge into that process, using its opening as leverage in a trade dispute the bridge itself has nothing to do with. The bridge is not delayed because of the bridge. It is delayed because the White House made it a bargaining chip. The most direct voice on what Canada should do about that has been Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens, the mayor of the Canadian city that stands to gain the most from this bridge opening. His position: if it's a bad deal, don't take it. He called the American demands asinine. He called the situation unacceptable. And he said clearly that Canada should be willing to leave the bridge closed rather than surrender, terms it already holds in a legally binding contract. That is a remarkable statement from a mayor whose city is watching economic opportunity sit idle across the river. But it reflects the broader Canadian calculation. Conceding a signed agreement under political pressure sets a precedent more costly than any single bridge delay. There is one more detail that belongs in this story. The Moran family, owners of the Ambassador Bridge, the monopoly the Gordie Howe was built to end, donated $1 million to a Trump-aligned political action committee before the White House's demands against the competing bridge emerged. Congressional Democrats have formally requested an investigation into that sequence of events. The bridge designed to end the Ambassador monopoly cannot open. The monopoly continues. The tolls accumulate. And every week of delay costs truckers, businesses, and consumers on both sides of the river money they were supposed to stop paying. The Gordie Howe International Bridge is built. The customs staff are ready. The systems are days from completion. One authorization is missing, and that authorization now has a price, one Canada has so far refused to pay. The bridge is not waiting on construction. It is waiting on politics. And until Washington and Ottawa reach a deal, the most expensive piece of finished infrastructure in North America sits empty over the Detroit River, while one family's bridge keeps collecting its toll.